So clearly there are a lot of things in life that are flat out criminal. Now, there are more important things that are criminal than what we're actually going to talk about today on the sleigh. But I will say this. If you didn't have Josh Allen actually listed as the top quarterback in the National Football League at the start of the season, that was absolutely criminal. If you don't have Josh Allen listed as the top quarterback in the National Football League after his third game this season, that too, my friends, would be absolutely criminal. Welcome back to the sleigh. As always, North America. I'm Dave DeBaugh coming to you from the Silicon Valley. So on today's show, I really wanted to get into the historical greatness that has turned into somebody that actually lives in Buffalo. And of course, I'm not talking about Scott Norwood. Sorry, Bills fans. I'm talking about, of course, Josh Allen, who has been historically great for a long time, but things have gotten to the point where his decision-making, which used to be a major weakness in his game, seems to have evaporated. Look, at the end of the day, when you think about Josh Allen, you think of a gunslinger-style quarterback. You think of Brett Favre. But the big difference between Brett Favre, I guess, and Josh Allen at this point, and sure, Brett Favre did win a Super Bowl, but outside of that, the big difference, at least at this point, is that Josh Allen has actually learned from his mistakes. Look, you never got rid of the recklessness in Brett Favre. Brett certainly didn't. He remained reckless throughout his career. Even the great Peyton Manning also remained reckless throughout a wide portion of his career as well. If you look at the Peyton Manning statistics, they might actually shock you, especially if you spend some quality time actually taking a look at the 251 interceptions that he actually threw out his career. And at no point during his career did we see a significant dip except for one season when he actually only threw 9 picks. Josh Allen, through his first 3 games of this young National Football League season, has only thrown 0 interceptions. Now, when we watched Josh Allen play on Thursday Night Football a couple nights ago, I was watching the game, and of course it was Tua, who looks like he belongs in a boy band, and of course it was Josh Allen. And if I had to say what kind of band does Josh Allen basically represent at this point, just being as old school as I am, I'd probably start talking about getting the lead out. Look, Josh Allen has turned into a historically great quarterback. And while the final score of that Miami Dolphins-Buffalo Bills game was a little closer than you might have imagined, the one thing that I never doubted throughout the game, even when it was tied, was that Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills weren't going to find a way to actually circle the wagon and actually win the game. Look, Josh Allen at this point certainly deserves all of the credit that he's getting. It's not like he didn't win the Most Valuable Player of the Year award last year. So certainly his critics have actually recognized that Josh Allen has changed and has actually gotten better throughout his career. But for the Buffalo Bills to be sitting 25 games into a streak in which they are actually winning the turnover battle should tell you everything you need to know about the Buffalo Bills organization, Josh Allen, and the coaching staff's maturity as a whole. Look, we saw what Jalen Hurts did last year, and if you take a look at Jalen Hurts' statistics over the last couple of years, it's basically a steady decline. And if you were to just look at Jalen Hurts' statistics and you compared it to like a stock chart, you'd probably be selling at this point. He'd probably be coding close to that point of actually being delisted. But what we know about statistics, and what a lot of people don't want to talk about when it comes to statistics, is understanding the truth behind those statistics. A lot of times I talk to people in the business world about valuations. And we'll talk about how much a company makes from a revenue perspective. And we'll talk how much are they going to actually make from revenue and what are they actually going to gross over the next 12 months. And yet, when we talk about their valuations, oftentimes their valuations are completely different related to the amount of revenue they're actually generating. I've talked about this numerous times. It's a prime example of how the Miami Marlins baseball organization actually was sold for over $1 billion a couple years ago. So look, when we talk about Josh Allen, you can't just look at the numbers. When you talk about Jalen Hurts, you certainly can't just look at the numbers. But if we were to look at Josh Allen's numbers, what we would come away from, or what we would basically conclude, is over the last year and a half, something has changed. 28-8 are his stats from last season. 5-0 are the stats from this season. What seems to be gone out of Josh Allen's games is a 3-turnover game, a 4-interception game. And that really all comes down to one thing. It's not just maturity on and off the field, but it's actually pre-snap routines and actually doing a good job studying the film the week before, understanding what the defenses are actually presenting to Josh, and actually making the right decisions based on the knowledge that he has accumulated during that 10 seconds that he has to actually figure out what the defense is actually trying to throw at him. Look, the line between a good quarterback in the National Football League and a not so good quarterback in the National Football League happens and generally stops during the pre-snap routine. In other words, it is quarterbacks who are actually able to understand what is actually being presented to them are usually the ones that ultimately have long careers in the National Football League. What we've seen out of Josh Allen in the last year and a half has been nothing short of historic. I challenge all of you to actually go back and take a look at Peyton Manning's statistics throughout his career. You'll be astonished next time you actually watch the Peyton brothers actually cover a football game and you see how disappointed Peyton Manning actually is when an interception is thrown. So disappointed that you think he never actually threw any picks, and yet he threw over 250 of them throughout his career. Now, Josh Allen, early in his career, certainly did throw his share of interceptions. But what we've seen over the last year and a half is nothing short of historic and impressive. And I'm telling you right now, it all happens because Josh Allen is actually spending time in the, if you will, video room, as they like to call it, studying film and truly being able to understand what's actually presented in front of him and then making the correct decisions. We don't talk about pre-snap routines a lot in the National Football League media, but we should, because that is where the difference is drawn between, once again, a bad quarterback and a good quarterback. Take a good quarterback now that is able to actually understand everything that's actually happening in front of him, and then take a good quarterback who has a tremendous amount, more historical amount of arm talent, make that quarterback a smart runner of the football as well, and you've just drawn up the picture of what a quarterback, modern day quarterback, might actually look like in a Wikipedia page, and that, of course, would be a picture of Josh Allen. Now, certainly there are other great quarterbacks in the National Football League today, and of course, Patrick Mahomes, who's a great quarterback, as we all know, but for a variety of other reasons. We also know that Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert and Lamar Jackson, all on paper, are also considered to be the top 4 great quarterbacks in the NFL today. The 5th best quarterback is probably more based on whether or not you've won a Super Bowl. I'd give it to Jalen Hurts, whose, of course, statistics have proven that you should probably be selling his stock. But the same thing that I was saying about Josh Allen can be said about Jalen Hurts, but in a slightly different way. Look, the Philadelphia Eagles organization understood that what they needed was a running game. And of course, they went out and got Saquon Barkley. They knew they have a certain style quarterback that probably shouldn't be throwing the ball 40 times a game. So now, if you watch a Philadelphia Eagles football game and you're expecting them to light it up through the air, that's probably not going to happen. But that doesn't mean Jalen Hurts isn't a great quarterback. That doesn't mean Jalen Hurts is, if you will, controlling the game because he can't throw the ball. It just simply means that the Philadelphia organization as a whole, and they certainly are including Jalen Hurts in this decision, have figured out the proper mix of pass and run. And it just so happens at this stage of his career, the run is going to dominate the pass, which has ultimately led to a Super Bowl championship for the Philadelphia Eagles last season. Now, of course, Josh Allen hasn't won a Super Bowl, and Josh Allen might end up with the Dan Marino fate of actually being a great quarterback who never actually has the opportunity to win a Super Bowl. Living in the Patrick Mahomes heroic era of the AFC is a difficult thing to overcome. And sure, maybe the Buffalo Bills will win a Super Bowl underneath Josh Allen's tutelage, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter one way or the other. Just simply to point out that what we've seen out of Josh Allen over the last year and a half, based on what we actually saw when he came into the National Football League, he's basically gone from being in a boy band to getting the lead out. All right, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this particular topic. Well, please go ahead and drop them in when you have a chance. For the Slay, I'm Dave DeBaugh. Wishing you all good luck and enjoy the rest of your sports viewing day.